mentioned you have a Wall Street background. Fractionalized art is something that's really been selling well for the past few years. There have been individual platforms on this. Selling it fractionalized on the blockchain is a no-brainer. What do you think? Is the artist community well versed in this? Do they understand this? Are they actively exploring this?
The traditional art community, definitely not. I mean, I think they're curious, but also very perplexed. Art is the visual arts world is very much about exclusivity. So this whole idea of, a communal buying of a piece of art makes zero sense to them. They're like, what does this even mean?
I mean, I'm a fan of some really big artists, and I don't think so I can own their paintings. So if there's an NFT platform where maybe they give me special viewing rights when I'm at
but what they do understand is editions. I mean, they understand editions. They understand a digital. I think more and more, well-known artists are now open to this idea of having hundreds and hundreds of editions of works that are otherwise not accessible to, I can't afford that kind of work either. I just want to be honest.
Exactly.
But I'm happy to own something that is an edition, an NFT edition of their work. And I think they're coming around to that. I think there is a little bit of a crypto freeze around. I mean, I know that the fractionalized buying of art started off as an interesting idea. I was going to throw this question back at you. How do you think the market is doing on that? From what I've heard, that hasn't really done very well.
The way I see it, the art space actually moves at close to 30 to 35% per year, as opposed to the S&P 500 that has an average moving rate of around 10% per year. So already it becomes a more lucrative investment. And from an artist point of view, they might there's certain artists that have millions of following online, but when it actually comes down to the art, it cannot connect with the people who actually build these artists up. So Web3, Arpit would definitely agree to me when I say would be an excellent platform for these artists to, be one with the audiences without
absolutely.
major middlemen.
Yes. I agree.
Arpit, would you like to throw in a couple of words there?
Ron, I missed your last point. Sorry, can you?
We were talking about fractionalized art and how Web3 would enable, artists to directly engage with their fans.
So I think I will kind of take it from what Myna also said, right? So a lot of these artworks, they have a niche market, right? And there are only so many people who can actually afford that artwork. So that's, owning that as an NFT is, definitely an interesting proposition. But from an investment point of view, I have, and this has been picking up really, really well. I have, in last few months, I have seen multiple projects which are working essentially on opening up, these collectible artworks and fractionalize them and open them up as an alternative investment product. So a lot of activity has been happening around that. But I think the interesting point is going to be around the legal aspects of it. How do you, for example, if I fractionalize, if I own a fraction of one of the very famous artworks, right, of, let's say, a famous artist, then what are my rights on that fraction? Am I allowed to take a printout of that and print it on a lot of shirts and commercially use it, right? So around those rights, a lot of action has been happening. So I have been in discussion with a couple of interesting folks who understand this space. For example, a very big law firm based out of Hong Kong, right? So they have a tokenization platform. So essentially, these are some of the questions that are going to come. So, I know a project which owns, Bored Apes. And what they have done is they have taken those Bored Apes and printed them on sneakers, and they are now creating those, lines of sneakers, right? So that rights portion, owning that as a fractional NFT in itself may not be very interesting. There can be price action, whatever. But what can you do with that fraction? That is going to be interesting, and that is going to be an area of increased research in times to come, because that is something how till date it is very clear. Somebody who owns an artwork, he owns an artwork in that shape and form, right? But when you can create thousands of fractions of that, what will be your rights around that? I think that's going to be an interesting space to see.
I mean, as long as I get my money plus a little bit extra, I'm happy. I'm not making any t-shirts or shoes.
Rohan, that's only one way of looking at it, right? So you are looking at it from a price action point of view,
Yes.
How prices move up and down there for that artwork. That is only one way of looking at it, right? And that's somewhat of a passive thing also. You can just take a fraction and then flip it, and when it goes up and all of those things, which is good, essentially not bad, which is good, but I think which is just a very which is a small starting point into this overall.
I mean, I know, I understand it's very small, but in history, retail has never had a chance or access to such tools. And when you open it up and when you tell people on, a platform like 𝗛𝗲𝗍 or 𝗦𝗽𝗍 that regular people can maybe buy $50 worth of an investment tool, that's quite historical for me, at least, the way it helps the little man out.
I actually agree with both of you. I think what Arpit is saying is absolutely spot on. I'm so interested in that conversation as well, Arpit. I hope you can keep me in the loop for that, because that is a question that I get from the art world all the time about, what happens even with this whole point of, when you buy an NFT, does this mean that who has the rights to the NFT? Is it the artist? Is it the person who's bought it to the original image? So the legal parts of that, as they are fleshed out, as we research them, as we shape them, is going to be a very important part, especially for the fine arts, visual arts part of it. Well, the flip side of that is also, trying to convince people that when they buy an NFT, they actually do have exclusive rights over something that's intangible, maybe in the digital space. And
Myna, I just want to button in on that point. I was also talking about, actual physical art. Like, I know you've curated some really major artists, and they've generally had buyers only between, millionaires and billionaires maybe. But now with this particular model to fractionalize the actual physical art, they have a much wider audience base who can buy. So, that goes up drastically.
Right. And you're right. And actually, it's not just to the millionaires, etc. I mean, we have tried the opposite as well, where we've had very well-known artists like 𝗪𝗪, whose works would generally sell for 50 lakhs plus, sell for, say, a couple of $1,000, and several editions of that would allow people to have access to an original piece of art. The artist will always imagine themselves as an individual. And so everything around that is about, an individual piece of art, and art that cannot be replicated. And that, I think, fundamentally is going to be philosophically something that this digital world is going to have to grapple with. Even the digital artists will. And one thing that I wanted to talk about is, how we've been talking to MIT, we've been talking to Infinite Objects. We've come up with these very novel ways of displaying art. When people do buy, when collectors buy an NFT work, how do we ensure that they are the only people who have access to this work, that their investment in this work is acknowledged. And that comes to the second part of it, is how do you display NFT art? We've discovered, we were close to the Armory because the Armory show was happening right around the same time that our exhibition opened. And we found out that now there are all of these products that are being launched in the fine art world, which allows for, the works to be projected directly from a wallet. So there's no way to really, so unless you've bought it in the digital space as an NFT, you cannot display it. You cannot download.
Your work is going to get a little more crazier, because like the physical adaptations and the production of it all in the space is getting crazier and crazier. And with VR, XR, MR, you could go nuts.
Yes, actually, I also helped. I was a curatorial advisor for one of the first NFTs that sold in auction at Sotheby's, 𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗄𝗹's work, and it fetched a fair price. It was 96,000. dollars that it fetched. And it was a physical piece of art, but it was a phygital NFT because the work was not
complete. It had a digital marker against it.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, the work was not complete without, I mean, otherwise it's just a canvas, but it was not complete without the process documented on the metaverse. So we felt like that metadata was also very much a part of the work. And I think the buyer, who was a tech buyer, I mean, and very interested in tech solutions, the person who bought it appreciated that it was something that he could physically show, but also had access to the entire process, all of the different iterations along the way, that individually could also be beautiful pieces of art digitally. So I think that more and more now there are these considerations, and but even fractionally, if people were to buy, would they be able to display it as one of theirs if there are certain sort of display units that only allow you to show works that you have bought? I think
as I just thought of this as a curator. I mean, fractional buying is a thing that directly results to the number of people actually visiting the art gallery. The intake could go up by factors of 5 to 10 to 15.
Yes. That is an exciting prospect, and one that I will push as an idea also in my next curation. I think
definitely
that's a good business.
And finally, I just want to paint a picture for you guys that's been bugging me in my head. Arpit, I'd love to get your point of. Yeah. Please, Arshit, please.
Just a second. You just sort of also like build on the fractionalized art ownership aspect. I think. As an artist, what is also interesting is that given that technology allows for such a thing to happen, how do you sort of incorporate fractionalized thinking of art as the intention of the project itself? So to sort of start thinking of things that actually, artworks that make sense for it to have distributed ownership, where it's like you're building an artwork for a communal kind of collectorship, right? And so it's not, let's say, just one visual or something, but it's more of
it literally changes the foundation of the artwork itself.
So I mean, just using the technology in a way that sort of creates a newer way of thinking of art itself, right? So this whole idea of fractionalized ownership, I think, can lead to that. So like just someone, let's say, owning lines of a poem or something, right? And then sort of having a collective way for them to come together to perform the poem or something of that sort. Or even this whole idea of art on chain, like with platforms like @blocks.io, where as an artist, I would generate sort of the recipe for the artwork. And then each time you mint the NFT, you create a new artwork from that recipe. So in some sense, the artwork is actually that recipe, but each of the individuals who mint, and this has become really popular. And for me also, as a generative artist working with code for creating art, this is interesting in terms of being able to have 1,000, not editions, not they are 1,000 unique pieces, but they are sort of tied in or constructed from the same recipe of a program that I've written, right? And then that also is a way of thinking of fractionalized ownership of this meta recipe that has been the starting point for the artwork.
Also, so this is also just, I'm sorry to butt in again, this is also bordering on, a community management aspect and building a community around it, which wasn't there associated with the artworks before. So it also adds an extra layer on that.
And even for like aspects of data collection, etc., right? Like with, for example, the Strange Enders work, we collected using Mechanical Turk and in-person collection, 2,500 people drawing a certain thing. So sort of thinking of the artwork as not simply sort of the final image or something, but also this whole process where there is a communal like aspect of data collection where people send in data of a certain kind and they get sort of become part of this larger process, and then they're given back a certain sort of artwork.
Yeah, like again, sorry to butt in. Like on Reddit, there's this subreddit called Art Place, where individuals can go and start painting particular blocks, and it's quite crazy the way community works there.
So I think that's what's exciting. Like technology enables new kinds of art forms to come into place, and I think that is what, as artists or as someone who's engaged with tech art, I'm very fascinated by exploring. Like, so sort of evolving the idea of art itself and what it means in today's age.
For sure.